I have spent a considerable amount of time on these 5 games. I went through and got all the achievements for all of them, and then I thought to myself, you know what if I put them on a tier list of how fun I actually thought the games were? So that's what we're doing here. I've already made reviews on the first 3 games here, but I didn't want to make scripted reviews. I really don't want to get too crazy in depth with every single detail and everything. I'm just trying to want to get my thoughts out there on my gaming experiences with these games without actually spending so much time and effort making a full-fledged review. So I'm not doing the traditional S, A, B, C, D, F. I'm not doing like a scale of 1 to 10. I'm not really comparing the games to each other because we got a bunch of different genres and different, we got retro games mixed in with a couple slightly more modern games. I'm just kind of judging as a video game, regardless of the game genre, regardless of when it was made. Could I just pick it up and have a fun time? Because at the end of the day, no matter what video game you're picking up, that is the goal. I want to pick it up and have a good game that is fun. So obviously this is very opinion based. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments down below. And then, games may jump around tiers as I do more of these. I'm going to try to do 5 games at a time every video. We're going to go with Super Mario 64. So here's the thing with Super Mario 64. Right off the bat, I'm probably going to make some hot takes and some people bothered in the comments. But Super Mario 64 looks great and it has amazing music, even for a retro game, a pre-2000 game. I still think it looks fantastic and I still think it sounds fantastic. But there's things that I love about the gameplay and things that I hate about the gameplay. The things that I love, it being kind of the first real 3D Mario game. You get a lot of jumping movement, you get a lot of fighting abilities like punch kick combos and stuff. It makes for a very versatile gameplay experience when you're trying to navigate and fight things. I love that instead of 2D linear worlds, you are thrown into these sandbox, open concept kind of levels, and every level has 7 different power stars you can get in them. You might be revisiting the same environment multiple times, but you're doing different things every time you go back. And your progress in the game really isn't that tied to getting specific stars, it's just the number of power stars you get. So you can progress through the game, and if there's power stars you don't really want to be bothered with, you can just ignore them or save them for later, and still progress through the game and still unlock new worlds and continue to reach the end to fight Bowser and save the day. So I love that. It adds replayability because you can go back and replay the game and go for stars you didn't get. Puts a lot of control in the player's hands so you can pick and choose which levels you want to focus on. It's just a real creative way to use the 3D levels. The bad things. Man, the 90s controls shine through because Mario can be pretty stiff and unresponsive sometimes. And same thing with the camera. The camera can get snagged and be really hard to move around in a fluid motion. And it's not so noticeable early on in the game, but man, when you get to those later levels and you have very treacherous levels with not a lot of platforms to stand on, and it's real dangerous, and you gotta make real precise movements and jumps, that shit gets in the way, and it leads to some real unfair, frustrating falls and deaths. So the controls really hinder the experience. In a game that's still a platformer, the controlling is such a key thing, and it just didn't age well. Back then, this game was revolutionary. There wasn't a metric or a standard to compare it to, but it's just in hindsight, it just doesn't feel good. And also the level design suffers too, so, the early levels I love when they're more open and kinda free to roam around in, but as you get later on in the game, the worlds get more linear. And I think the idea was that it makes them more challenging, very thin pathways, it's a lot easier to fall off of stuff, but when you're going back for multiple power stars, it feels like you're doing the same level over and over again. I'm specifically thinking about like Tick-Tock Clock and Tall Tall Mountain. If you want to get all the power stars, you're running the exact same mountain path, the exact same gears and cogs obstacle course of Tick-Tock Clock over and over. Whereas in the open world levels, you can run different directions and encounter different things, and they feel unique. Man, the later game levels, and then all the deaths you're going to rack up from the archaic controls just really hit in a bad way. So Super Mario 64 leaves me conflicted in that manner. I forgot about the caps. The caps are so irrelevant. They don't really take away from the game, but they don't do much either. The caps are kind of this game's answer to having power-ups in the classic games. You get the wing cap, lets you fly around. Metal cap makes you sink in the water and invulnerable to damage. Vanish cap makes you sneak by enemies and phase through items. They're only useful for the very, very small handful of stars that require them. They're not practical to use in regular gameplay. They're tucked up out of the way. Most caps aren't even in most levels, and then also the power-ups wear off very quickly. Caps kind of go pretty underutilized. Super Mario 64, look, I love the early game, I tolerate the middle game, and I hate the end game. That's all there is to it. So it leaves me conflicted. I might have lit some people's souls on fire and people are going to come to put a pitchfork through my eye socket, but Super Mario 64 leaves me conflicted. There's things I love and there's things I hate, and I have to put it there. I'm sorry. Uncharted Drake's Fortune. I specifically played the remastered version in the Nathan Drake collection, and it looks great, dude. The characters' face animations look amazing, and the voice acting is amazing. Like, you can really see and hear emotion on the characters when they're in stressful situations. It is awesome. The main cast is just such a fun batch of characters. I love Nate. He's the suave but kind of dorky main character. Elena is a very fearful, kind of scared news reporter at first who just wants her story, but then as time goes on, she kind of becomes more brave and buys into the adventure. Sully is just a freaking hilarious character that it's kind of the sidekick, for lack of a better term, to Nathan Drake. But his big mouth always kind of gets the group into trouble, more so than not. You know, the whole quest is that it's a quest for treasure. You know, Nate's an archaeologist, so he's kind of there for the riches and the history. And then Sully just wants to be rich off his ass. He could give a shit less about, you know, all the other stuff. He just wants the gold, he wants the riches. But the plot of the story is that there's also a criminal organization racing you to find this treasure too. And you end up kind of stranded on this tropical island with this criminal organization trying to hunt you down and get the treasure for themselves. So the actual plot line is fine. It's nothing too crazy. It's really the main characters that sell how interesting it is. Definitely not the villains. Holy shit, are the villains in this game boring. Oh man, the bad guys in this game are just so uninteresting. They're the most fucking cookie cutter, plain ass dudes. I barely remember them. They're just kind of there. They don't even hold a candle to the personalities of the main characters. The game environments look beautiful, at least early on. Early on, you're running through jungles, you're exploring an ancient temple, there's a castle fortress like on the side by the ocean, and it all looks amazing. And then the visuals drop off in the end half of the game where you're just running through like destroyed structures and catacombs and boring ass tunnels. Like visually the game kind of takes a nosedive. Environments get much less interesting as time goes on. Gameplay wise, it's a pretty standard third person shooter. Nothing to write home about. Like, it's not specifically bad in any way, but it's not very remarkable either. It works, it's fine, you know, third-person cover-based shooter, you get your various guns. My main gripe is just that enemies are bullet sponges, man. Like, if you're not getting headshots on people, they can tank entire clips worth of ammo. It can make firefights kind of drag on way longer than I want it to, especially on higher difficulties. Dear Lord, you can dump an entire rifle clip into a bandit and they just walk it off. It's crazy. They do have a good balance of melee combat. You can do a melee combo and you get rewarded with double ammo when you do that. So if you're running low on ammo and you're forced to get up close with fisticuffs, you can kind of rebound with a large chunk of ammo coming your way as a reward for that. There's a lot of climbing segments in the game that kind of serve more as cinematic set pieces rather than actual fun gameplay. The gameplay of the climbing is actually pretty annoying. Sometimes you just feel like you're not going the direction you want to, and there's never particularly anything engaging. It's just kind of to get your oohs and ahs in with what you're seeing. Kind of just add some tension, which is fine, but it's not particularly fun to climb around on things. And then there's also a slew of puzzles throughout that are pretty fun. None of them are all that challenging. It's a nice kind of pace breaker from the run and gun shooting segments, the very Hollywood-esque action segments. So I can appreciate the puzzles. They're not too thought-provoking, but I'm not upset that they're there. Unlike the vehicle segments, which I'm absolutely upset that they're there. Oh my god, there's a turret segment on a car. I don't think you're not on a turret, but you're passenger and you have to shoot off enemies that are chasing you. That part sucks. What, like wave racers? What's the word? Jet ski, that's the word I'm looking for. There's jet ski segments, and they are fucking awful, dude. Because the whole, like, you're trying to blitz up a river or through the water high speed, but you have to stop to shoot obstacles, so you're just stopping dead in the middle. So it's constant start, stop of trying to blitz forward, but then you gotta shoot stuff, and then you gotta move forward, and you gotta shoot stuff. Oh, the vehicle segments are terrible, dude. Uncharted Drake's Fortune, the very first one. Looks great, characters are great. I'm interested to play the sequel games to see where it goes, but it's just an alright game. It's not bad, so it's still technically on the positive end of the scale for me. but it's just alright. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, this is the 2019 game, and this game looks absolutely amazing. Holy shit, dude. The cinematic cutscenes look so realistic, it's crazy. And even in-game, you know, it's not to that same caliber, but it still looks great. I don't remember shit about the music, so we're gonna skip that. Literally one of the most forgettable soundtracks I think I've heard. I literally can't remember the music in this game. The plot line is pretty cookie-cutter military story, so this made-up third-world country, Urzikstan, is trying to survive against Russia, who's invading them. Russia's trying to get their hands on this, like, chemical warfare gas, and then the US steps in because they don't want Russia to have it, so they're just kind of throwing their hands into the mix. It's fine. It's a very, like, whatever story. I'm not particularly impressed with any of the characters. You know, Captain Price is a fan favorite returning from games, but none of the other characters are all that interesting. Sergeant Garrick's always kind of temperamental and to a certain point whiny. You have Alex, who's a US CIA agent, and he ends up kind of more or less betraying the US and takes the side of Urzikstan because he's more in belief with their mission than the US mission. Farah, who is the leader of the Urzikstan forces, oh my god, she's so boring, dude. Like, I love when games have badass female heroes, but, like, her whole personality trait is just being a badass, which, yes, be a badass, but also have a personality, dude. She's like a piece of cardboard. She's like a robot that someone just designed to go into war with no personality, just to take things down, dude. Like, she genuinely doesn't always feel like a human being. Gameplay-wise, I mean, here's the thing, right? Everyone likes to hate on the Call of Duty games for being the same recycled shit year after year after year. But, like, if it works, how can you blame them, you know? Like, I get it. Sometimes it's hard to accept that it feels like the same game as last year. But, man, this game, you pick up a controller and it just feels right, dude. It controls perfectly. The movement, the sliding, the crouching, the shooting, the aiming, everything just feels perfect. There's no learning curve. Anyone can pick up a controller and pretty quickly figure out Call of Duty. It's super casual friendly. There's no weird mechanics to try to figure out. The campaign is super fun. Every mission feels pretty unique. They throw a bunch of diversions to kind of break up the fast-paced gunplay. You can pilot an attack helicopter in one mission. There's a CCTV stealth segment in one mission. There's like a nighttime operative mission where you're going in with night vision goggles trying to take out enemies like systematically. There's a sniper mission. It all just is perfect. It feels fantastic. The only mission I hate is when they take the night operative stealth segment and they put it in this large ass map near the end of the game. There's this huge stealth mission and it just takes forever because you're trying to be stealthy, so you're sneaking around everywhere all super slow. There's just enemies everywhere, so you're playing a waiting game a lot of the time trying to pick your moments, and that's where the stealth nighttime goes wrong. But other than that, the rest of the campaign is super fun to play through. The multiplayer is incredibly fun. I am not a fan of competitive multiplayer. I can't stand competitive multiplayer for the most part. But even Modern Warfare 2019 hooked me. So many gun unlockables, so many daily challenges and checklist items to complete, which just makes my OCD-ass brain absolutely happy, gets my gamer boner going. Love having a checklist of things to do, and I had to call it quits and cut off myself from the multiplayer because I was really getting into it. It was really fun. The Spec Ops, on the other hand, absolutely horrible. God-awful game mode. One of the worst things I've probably ever played in any video game ever. Holy shit, the Spec Ops mode is atrocious. If the entire game was like the Spec Ops mode, I'd put it at the bottom, the lowest possible tier. That's how bad the Spec Ops mode is. It's not like previous Call of Duty games where you can go in solo or just play, you know, with one buddy. You have to jump in with a group of 4 online. The Spec Ops missions are super long and dragged out, just objective after objective after objective, and then they just throw like a literal fucking army of enemies at you from every goddamn direction, like way overwhelmingly bullshit difficulty, dude. Super not fun. The Spec Ops is awful. Just don't play it. It's awful. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, I think it's an amazing game. I'm gonna put it in amazing game. I think it's really well put together. I think it's really fun. I don't dislike Call of Duty, but I'm not going to say I'm a Call of Duty fan. But I think it was a very fun time. I had a fantastic time playing through it. Rage! It's a post-apocalyptic first-person shooter with some RPG elements dotted throughout it. We'll start with graphics. Visually, Rage, it blows its load in the first few minutes. The opening cutscene, amazing. The beginning of the game looks gorgeous as it's setting up the story. And then the rest of the game, like, after that doesn't look bad, but I don't know, it's just, I guess I like to call it the wasteland trap, where when you make a post-apocalyptic game set in a wasteland, like, I understand that's the setting and I shouldn't expect to see like vibrant forests and gleaming blue oceans, but when the entire game is just destroyed buildings and desert sand, it kind of gets to be visually boring after a while, you know? Like, the whole game looks the same. I couldn't tell dungeons and different locations apart for the longest time. They all blurred together, so the resolution and frame rate and the like technical stuff about the visuals is totally fine. Just the actual environment, the artistic side of it is pretty lacking. There's a couple places that look great here and there. Same with the music, like other than the main theme, which is kind of alright, like I don't remember much of the music in this game. I think it's fine, just none of it really sticks out in my head. The plot is super disappointing, dude. The storyline, just like the graphics, it sets you up in the beginning, and it may not be a unique concept, but the idea is that humanity's getting fucked. Like a giant meteor is taking out mankind and there's nothing we can do about it. But a select handful of people get placed underground in these arcs with the idea that they can reemerge someday, like several hundred years, I think it's 100 years after the meteor, and try to rebuild civilization. And you play as one of these arc survivors. Who you play as, fuck if I know. The game never explains anything about your main character. You don't even get to know your name without Googling it. The idea is that there's very few normal survivors who are trying to survive, as survivors do, in their small settlements. There's bandits all over the place that just run around spreading anarchy. There are mutated creatures throughout the land, ripping people to pieces. There's a tyrannical kind of government force called the Authority that wants everyone to conform to their rules. It's like, it's got a premise, you know? Like, you're one of these survivors from an arc, and you try to build trust with surviving settlements and join this resistance to fight off against the Authority. But dude, throughout the game, none of that shit rarely ever comes up. Like 90% of the quests in the game are just doing errands for people and earning trust. And then once you earn someone's trust, you move on to the next city. And then you're back to doing fucking bitch errands, trying to earn their trust. And you move on to the next city. Like, so little of the main game has anything to do with actually joining the resistance and taking down the Authority. There's maybe like 3 missions that are actually related to that, and that's it. And the game ends super abruptly. You're storming an HQ, and then suddenly, boom, credits roll. Like, super jarring, super unsatisfying. I didn't care about any of the side characters throughout the game. Rage just like, it put a baseball, it teed up a baseball, set it right there, perfect view for a home run, and then just like completely swung the bat, missed the ball, and flung the bat into someone's windshield. Completely screwed the pooch on telling a good story. So I kind of down-talked the visuals and the audio and the story of Rage, so what is there to love about it? It's just a fun fucking game to play, dude. You get all these different guns, and every gun has 3 or 4 different ammo variations, so they feel different. So functionally, every gun feels like 3 or 4 different guns on itself. I get a shotgun, I load it with buckshot, or I can put explosive rounds in it, so it's like a grenade launcher, or I can put pulse rounds in it, so I can stun enemies with electric shock. Every gun has different utility like that. You get a bunch of different side items, like grenades and RC bomb cars, and dude, the wing sticks are these bladed boomerangs that are just so goddamn satisfying to just throw at people and chop heads off. It's such a good time. The driving in this game, there's a lot of driving, there's a lot of racing and vehicle combat, and it feels super simple and fun. It's a joy to drive around and blow up other vehicles. I love the combat racing. There's side quests, there's mini games, so you can stray away from the main story and try some other stuff if you want to. Dislikes about the gameplay, some of the RPG elements feel kind of shoehorned in. You know, there's crafting in this game. It's not bad. I don't know that it takes away from the game, but it doesn't really feel necessary either. You can craft your side items and, you know, craft bandages or bombs and whatnot, but you can also buy that stuff at a store, and money is never an issue in this game. You're always going to have a pretty fat wallet, so I don't know if like scrounging up parts throughout dungeons as I go on is necessary, but I guess it doesn't take away from anything. The driving around feels a little weird because it's not an open world game. It's very linear, but you still have to drive from place to place, so it's like there's nothing to see. I'm kind of just going from point A to point B. There's no places to explore. You know, there's nothing to discover really out in the wastelands, so the driving around I felt was unnecessary unless I was specifically doing races or in a vehicle combat thing. The side quests are just not fun at all. There's so few in the game already. All of the side quests fall into one of 2 camps. You're either put up in a sniper's nest to provide sniper cover, which isn't particularly fun, or you're revisiting a main story dungeon that you've already beat, and you're just grabbing a new MacGuffin, like running a favor for someone. But it's like you've already ran through this place before, so it feels like you're just doing it again. So the side quests really don't land. The side minigame, though, there's a side minigame called Rage Frenzy. It's a collectible card game. The cards are all based on items and characters in Rage. Holy shit, so fun. It's one of the best minigames, dude. I wish they expanded on it. Maybe they do in the sequel. I haven't played Rage 2. Or maybe they shit-canned it completely. I don't know, but Rage Frenzy is such a good diversion. I love having a collectible that actually has an in-game feature, and it's just so fun. Maybe I'm just a sucker for like battle card games like that, but I love it. I could play Rage Frenzy over and over. It's super addictive. Rage is also a very easy game. If you're someone who wants a bit of a challenge, you're really going to want to crank that difficulty scale up, because you get health boosts, you get permanent health upgrades, you get armor upgrades, you get a large arsenal of deadly weapons. You get a defibrillator that when you lose all your health, you play this little mini game and you can revive yourself and it'll recharge over time. Bandages, which insta-heal you at the press of a button, and they're really easy to craft or purchase. They're cheap. They're the easiest item to get in the game. If you're someone who's looking for a challenge, that's probably a negative. If you're someone who's just looking for a casual play, it probably doesn't matter, but I just wanted to point that out. And lastly, we'll talk about Rage's multiplayer, the very dead wasteland of a multiplayer lobby. There's a co-op mode called Legends of the Wasteland, and they're fine. They're little side missions. You don't get all the crafting, and it's a lot limited on the weapons you get, but you just kind of spawn in with pre-made stuff. You and a buddy can run through these quick missions in like an hour. They're okay. It's whatever. It's nothing too crazy. The online competitive multiplayer is called Road Rage, and it takes the vehicle racing and combat racing from the campaign and makes it multiplayer, which is a really fun idea. I bet if you could get 3 buddies together to try this out, you'd probably have a pretty damn good time. But no one ever played this game online. Like, even way back when this game first came out in 2011, dude, like, the online was dead. No one played this game online. And especially a decade and a half later, give or take, you're not gonna find any Road Rage games online, which is a shame because I think there could have been something there. So overall, how do I feel about Rage? I think it's an underrated gem. I think it's got flaws, but it just has an undeniable fun factor. Like, it's a really great game to just turn off your brain and have fun. And I'm gonna put it on par with Modern Warfare 2019. I think it's an amazing game. I think Modern Warfare is a better made game, a lot more polished and technically better, but Rage just has pure, raw, turn off my brain fun. Lastly, The Legend of Zelda, the classic game. I'm really not going to judge too hard on visuals and music and stuff from an NES 8-bit era game. I mean, this game invented the Legend of Zelda music though, so credit to that. And even in 8-bit audio, it sounds fine. Plot's pretty simple, save the princess from evil sorcerer dude, nothing crazy, but the gameplay, dude, The Legend of Zelda, okay. This game had to be mind-blowing back then, dude. You just load up in a world, and it's just, alright, go explore. Talk about just pure freedom and control in the player's hands. You just run around, and you can explore dungeons. You don't even have to specifically do dungeons in an order. You can do dungeons out of order. You can find items in whatever order you want, as long as they don't require, like, other items to find them. It is just like an RPG in the pure sense of just get lost, find what you can find, and have fun. You know, the goal is to eventually come across all 8 dungeons and collect all pieces of the Triforce. And then once you do that, you can go to the final 9th dungeon to beat the game. So there is kind of a roadmap for you to follow, but however you get to that goal is up to you. It is amazing. The combat is plain and simple. You always have your sword on the A button and whatever secondary item you want on your B button, which could be more offensive options like a bow and arrow or bombs, or utility related stuff like a candle. There's tons of secrets in the overworld and in the dungeons to explore. Increase your max health, get item upgrades. My problem with The Legend of Zelda is that kind of grindy sometimes. You know, if you need money to purchase an expensive item, not a lot of enemies drop money, and when they do drop money, it's only in increments of 1 or 5. So if you're trying to save up 100 plus rupees to get a nice item, you're going to be grinding money for a while. I also don't like randomly running around blindly. This is something that you're going to fall into one of 2 camps, right? You either want to play the game in its purest form and run around blind and randomly bomb walls and burn trees to discover the next hidden cave or whatever, and that's fine, I'm not judging you for doing that. Or you're going to want to use an online map to actually have even a goddamn clue of what to do next. But I'm not judging you for that either, because it's like, I did that. I couldn't play this game without a map, because I don't want to spend countless hours running around without a goddamn clue what to do. That's just, I can't do that. Judge me if you want, I don't care, but I think it's a flaw. If the game is so nebulous that you can't figure out what to do with this freedom you're given, I can't get behind that. And it does feel weird having to reference outside tools to make progress in the game. And then the second quest. Oh, the second second quest is so bad, dude. When you beat the game the first time, you roll into a second quest, which is a neat idea. All of the dungeons are rearranged, all the items are moved around, it completely changes everything, mixes everything up. Essentially doubles the length of the game you just got, which is fantastic on paper. Except they did so many new game design things in the second quest that are terrible, dude. There's like invisible doorways and walls, but some of them are one way that you just walk into and you go into a new room. Rooms where these guys will steal a heart container from you if you don't have 50 rupees to cough up. The dungeons are just in general more confusing and a pain in the ass to navigate. There's way more secret rooms that take away your rupees instead of give you rupees. These red and blue static enemies where if a red one touches you, you permanently lose access to your sword. And you have to go find a blue one, and the blue one will regain your ability to use your sword. It's just such weird shit, dude. I hate the second quest, genuinely. I'm glad the first quest made more sense. It leaves me torn because the second half of the game is so bad I don't want to play it. So the most enjoyable way to experience the game is to only play the first half. That in itself is inherently flawed, but I'm going to say The Legend of Zelda is a good game. I really enjoyed the first quest. You know, you can still get some mileage replaying the first quest. I had a good time. Surprisingly didn't age as poorly. Like, I could see like an indie developer or someone making a very similar twist to this game in modern times and not being too far off from what Legend of Zelda did. So I think it's good. It's got problems, but it's good. Anyways, that is my game rankings. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me ramble. Sorry if I've sounded like shit. I am sick and I do not feel great, so I didn't want to go rambling on for too long, but I just wanted to spit out my hot takes on these games and put them in a list that kind of roughly sums up how I feel about them. Again, they may jump up and down tiers as time goes on, but we'll see. So if you guys like this video, click that fancy little thumbs up button down there. If you got thoughts on any of these games or hot takes of your own, throw them in the comments section down below. And then subscribe if you want to see this. I want to build out this list 5 games at a time until we have a pretty sizable list here and try to find the quest for that ultimate one if we can. Thank you guys for watching.